Okay, so second time lucky. Um, this week we're going to be talking about The Chaser, which is a 2008 Korean movie. So firstly, I just want to kind of get your initial sort of observations about the movie, like what did you find interesting, or did you like it, or didn't you like it, and why not?
Yeah, what's going on?
I really liked it. I thought it was a really good movie. Um, my first impressions was that there was a lot of cars in the opening scene. There was like lots of like, and they were sort of they sort of picked out um, for it, and so that was cool. Like, I think the main character has like a Jaguar, and like all the other, they sort of seemed like suited to their characters. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I liked just the way that it looked. Seoul it's South Korea, yeah. Probably not North. Yeah, the city looked amazing. Like, I was like just amazed how the tight little corners in all the streets and everything, and how they managed to weave around that. And that it was kind of like a cold blue, greeny light that was all over everything. That looked good. Yeah, I liked it.
It was always like wet and rainy, like throughout the whole movie. It was very like noir almost.
Yeah, like if point that you raised, Anna, about the tight streets and all that. I thought the car crash scene was really good. Yeah, that was one of my kind of like favorite moments of the whole thing. Of course, there were like lots more, but that was just, I thought, filmed really well.
So like the way that scene was set up, or like how it was written, or
I think a combination of both. Like, how like I liked it how the serial killer, he's in the car, and then the cop comes over, well, the ex-cop comes over, and he's like just the way he's like, oh no, you don't have to pay for any of the damage or anything like that. Just like the way he kind of handled it, it made him seem even more kind of, I don't know, evil, if that makes sense. Yeah, he played it really well, his role as a serial killer. Like, it was very convincing.
I guess that says a lot about the actor, doesn't it?
Mm. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say about the car crash, how it was so great that like he didn't even mean to do it. He was like, it was just because the streets are that way, so compact, that he was able to trap him.
Mm.
It was sort of convenient, yeah. Like the rest of the cars come up, and they're all sort of trapped in this confrontation.
Mm. It was really kind of, I guess, entertaining when the ex-cop goes up to him and he's just like yelling at him and stuff and accusing him of all these things, and you stole my girls, and then there's like the kind of the fight sort of scene, and he's like running after him through the streets. Just how that was filmed was like really good, like visually. You got the whole thing, and it was just really kind of, the fighting was like really gritty and kind of full on, like you could feel the pain on both of them, like as they're like punching each other.
Yeah, the fight scenes were definitely like they were sort of like dirty and like almost unprofessional. That was like, because like they weren't set up as like martial artists. They were just like street fighting and like causing each other serious injuries.
Yeah.
There was no sort of like, like how there's lots of fight movies and stuff, or fights in movies where like just the random dude all of a sudden like poses like, in boxing stance, or like all of a sudden does some weird martial arts, and you're like, that's not how real people fight.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I felt like that was really realistic, because they were just sort of grappling and like hitting and scratching and like, yeah, everything.
It was a lot more, like the fight scenes were a lot more authentic. like you really kind of felt their anger, like they were just really wanted to kill each other. So it didn't feel like it was staged or really kind of sort of thought out. Like it seemed more like spontaneous.
Yeah, it was a good use of the body. I thought there was like you said, you could feel their pain. Like, yeah. I was almost thinking like maybe are they actors? Like, are they seriously getting hurt, or is this stage? I don't know.
Yeah, that would be interesting to kind of look further into, like the stunts and all of that aspect of the movie.
Tricky is when you get
Yeah, you don't really sort of think about like as you go into lots of stunts and things all the time. You sort of just think about how how it looks and how the effect it has on the movie. But there's clearly a lot of there's a lot of fairly serious action scenes. Wondering how they sort of worked that in, if they had to have stunt people or whether the actors just did it. I'm feeling that like it would be really like they brought in stunt people. It would have been difficult because like the actors were so good. Like the actors are so good with all their facial expressions and like and sort of how they make their body look like. They carry themselves differently. It's sort of how you can put lots of the characters apart.
Did you guys think that they had a particularly different to maybe what you would have seen in Western movies, like use of the body? Like, I don't know, because I've read that Asian cinema is really good with showing how the body can be pushed to its limits and like specifically focusing on it as a part for the film, like to make an impact for the audience.
Yeah, I definitely think like with the fight scenes and like the use of the body, as you were saying, is kind of a bit of a trend that I've sort of seen in other kind of Asian sort of crime movies, like within that genre. So it could definitely be sort of like an Asian thing in cinema.
Well, I use the UX too.
I think they just carry themselves more realistically, if that makes sense. Like, I sort of feel like they could have played up lots of characters as like a sort of a buff sort of like action hero character. But they've all sort of got their own little intricacies that really fit into their role within the movie. So there's like the main guy who's like the pimps and ex-cop. He's got a huge ego, but he's not. That doesn't make him like super powerful or anything. It's like he's running away from people and chasing people down, but he has to put all of his effort into it. It's not like, oh look, I'm just the hero here. I'm gonna go chase this guy down or beat this guy in a fight. Or he's just like got lots of ego and motivation.
Yeah, it's not like with the ex-cop now pimp. He's kind of just an ordinary guy, almost like he's just kind of realistic, I guess. Whereas, like,
just not a pimp.
Just not.
Right?
Just an ordinary pimp trying to make his way in the world.
Yeah. No, he's like how Nathan was saying, like he doesn't have any special like superpowers or whatever. He's not like I know Bruce Willis in that kind of action sort of genre, American genre, where he's kind of like super buff and he do amazing things. Like with this movie, with The Chaser, he's more kind of like you can relate to him more. He's just a bit more ordinary.
I think he's a more realistic character. Like his motivations, are more realistic. Like at the beginning, he's motivated by money, and then he starts being motivated by other things as well that he sort of like get in throughout the movie. But then sort of how he reacts to all of that is all really, I don't know, it all seems very real and understandable.
What about the running scene where he's like they're all him and the killer, like he's chasing down the killer, and you can see them tiring.
Yeah.
Like you get to feel them. Yeah, because they run for so long, and I'm just thinking, geez, are they gonna like drag it out like they're marathon runners, or are they gonna fatigue? And they fatigued, so it's good.
Because I guess like there's a lot of Hollywood films that have sort of running chase scenes, and they just seem to run forever.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what's going and some of them are like, it's sort of like a fantasy thing, like James Bond things. It's like, oh, this is this fantasy. It's sort of like super guy, and he can run forever. So it's like that's like whatever. But there's other movies where just like they just seem to run and just run just for the sake of having a long chase scene.
Yeah, definitely. Like with the running, like they looked tight, like they were sweating, they were exhausted, whereas in like kind of more Western American movies with long chase scenes, they kind of look superhuman, like they're not even tiring or anything. They don't look fatigued at all, so I think that's a really good point to raise, that maybe that is something that is quite, I know, South Korean.
I think it's just an attention to detail thing. I don't know whether that like maybe that's like South Korean films pay a bit more attention to detail. But I'm sure there's like Hollywood or other Western films that sort of understand those things. I just don't know if they care as much.
Yeah, I guess the question that you'd ask though is, do you like it? Like, do you prefer to see your hero fatiguing, or do you prefer to see them everlasting superhero? I want to see him fatigue, basically.
But I have kind of down experience as well. I was ordering last stream.
I think it depends on the movie. It definitely fit this movie.
I don't know. Like in the cop kind of crime genre, I think it's kind of appropriate to have your hero as a bit more human and less kind of superpower-y, if that makes sense, less with, powers and kind of seems indestructible. Like, I think you kind of, in this particular genre, you kind of need someone who is a hero, but he's also human, and so that you can relate to him a bit more. And I think that The Chaser does actually do that really well. Like, you do feel kind of empathy for him, and you want him to kind of kill the bad guy. Yeah, so I think that's definitely an interesting point to raise.
Interesting that, like, he's quite obviously the hero here, but he's a pimp, and he treats these people so badly, and he treats everyone so badly. Like, at the beginning of the movie, he's like just talking crap about everyone, like telling people that they're going to get, like, if they mess up, they're going to die. Like he's not a great guy. He's not really a stand-up guy. But so I think it's interesting that he's he gets put in a sort of hero / protagonist of the story.
Yeah, I think that raises like a really good point about how in the movie it kind of explores this really kind of complicated, almost sophisticated sort of theme of like good versus evil, and the fact that you can't really, it's not clear cut. And so with the pink ex-cop guy, he is a hero, but he's not perfect. Like, there are sides of him that are kind of a bit bad, but then there's a lot of good in him, and I think that kind of makes it even more realistic as a character to kind of connect with.
Yeah.
The teacher just walked in. I'm just going to ask if I can do a hangout with their classes here. Just take a second.
They have classes now? Those bastards. I think it's so strange that like there's like one computer in the uni that will work. It's so weird.
So inconvenient.
Uni. Classic uni.
So I had to replace the...
Yeah, he's not into it.
Yeah, okay.
I gotta go. But you guys can continue chatting about this. My thoughts, I'll find a little chaser to add to it. I didn't like the villain. That's obvious. But I just thought that he wasn't villainy enough. That's what I think. I don't know. All right, I see you.
Oh, bye. That's lame.
Then there were two.
Oh, Agatha Christie. Is there like an Asian Agatha Christie we can watch? Like,
I don't know. I should find that out.
crime mystery. I guess like this is a crime mystery, but yeah.
Yeah, I think also just what we're talking about. Oh yeah, that's the good evil kind of thing. Yeah, so I think he's more complicated than just, you know, like a good guy or a bad guy. Like he's kind of both. And he like with the hero thing, it's kind of at the start he doesn't want to be a hero, and then as it goes on, he kind of really embraces it because he just wants to get the serial killer so badly, and he wants his revenge.
Yeah. I think the daughter really plays a huge part in that. Because like he talks about his girls for the first half of the movie, and he's like, oh, you know, he's taken all my girls, he's taken all my money, we get paid all this money for these movies. And then like after that, once he meets the daughter, it's kind of changes.
Yeah, I think the daughter kind of humanizes him and kind of makes him think more seriously about kind of his life in general and, you know, what he stands for and who he is. And I think maybe gives him a bit of a moral compass because, like, he feels sorry for her and he knows that her mother may not come back to her. So I think that, definitely kind of makes him more kind of morally good.
Yeah, I think it's the scene where he first sees the daughter is really I thought like almost confronting because I was thinking he's gonna be humanized by this girl, like he's gonna be able to relate and be really nice, and he's gonna be, oh okay, I need to take care of this girl now, screwed over her mum, but he's just like, get in the corner, you little brat, don't you have somewhere to be?
Yeah, he definitely doesn't want to be like the father figure or the babysitter at first. He's definitely kind of repulsed by her almost. He just does not want to sort of deal with her. He just wants his money and his girls. It sounds so weird when I say his girls, but yeah,
He is a pimp after
I think
all.
I think as it goes on, he definitely becomes a lot more kind of sympathetic towards her. He even sort of cares, especially in the part where she goes missing, and he goes running after her. I think that at that point he actually does care about her.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting the difference between like him being sort of like going to try and solve the mystery himself, and then the police. Because the police don't really seem to care, or at least when they do, like they're sort of like limited by like higher up like corruption.
Yeah. When he goes to his detective friend, he seems to kind of care because he knows that like he makes a connection between like previous murders and this guy, so he's definitely sort of motivated to get him, as well as the female cop as well. So, but you raised an interesting point about the politics of it all, and I think the complexities of being sort of a law enforcement agency and having to deal with you know, people higher up who have sort of expectations and want to try and control everything and what's going on.
Situation is in South Korea's, but I've recently had friends who travelled to Thailand, and it was a very sort of bribe or you don't get anything or you don't get anywhere sort of situation. And there's no open bribery in the film, but there sort of seems to be a lot of levels of corruption with the prosecutor and the guys. What's it? Is it the bad guy's like lawyer?
Yeah,
Like,
illegal aid over there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And trying to sort of maintain public appearances rather than actually solve the problem.
Yeah, because it's all linked to at the beginning of the movie where the person in the crowd throws this crap onto the mayor's face, and so it kind of all links together, and which I find really quite interesting because it kind of sets this sort of whole thing in motion because from that, the detective friend, he's automatically seen as kind of incompetent and, you know, can't do his job. And the big boss is like pressuring him, so there's a lot of pressure on him to kind of get this all solved. Otherwise, you know, it's his head on the chopping block.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was really interesting. A lot of the times when they went to talk about like they needed evidence or something, and they were like, there was like, why didn't you make it up? I think there was like one scene where they like sat down with one guy. It's like, oh, so here's all the stuff. And the guy's like, where's his motive? And they're like, oh, he didn't really talk about his motive. I'm like, well, why didn't you make one up?
Yeah. Also, too, I don't know if you remember, but in the scene where they're trying to find the bodies, and the detective, or the head detective guy, is briefing all the other detectives and uniformed cops, and he's saying something like, oh, we need to get this done and solved, we need to prove that he did it. If you need to plant evidence, it's fine. It's like...
Yeah. It's like we need to do everything, and if you can't do anything, just make it up. So I thought that was some pretty serious, like, obvious corruption there. Which is like, it's really irritating because you know the guy's guilty because you've seen it and you sort of, you know, you want them to get him, but then going through all the corruption is like, oh, it could just like jeopardize the case. I don't know, that's sort of how I felt while watching it.
Yeah, I don't know, coming from a kind of Western perspective where, generally speaking, our police force is not corrupt. I mean, there's obviously incidences of corruption, but overall our system's pretty good. It's kind of, you're sitting there watching and you're thinking how, you know, they should be doing their jobs, they shouldn't be worrying about all this other stuff with, you know, the mayor and all of that, and image control. So yeah, maybe as a viewing experience, you know, coming from a Western perspective, it's definitely something in play, that sense of frustration.
I think having sort of a cultural and personal distance from like institutionalized corruption. Like I don't know how prevalent it is in South Korea, and if that's a huge deal. But I know there's lots of sort of Southeast Asia where that's sort of the norm.
Yeah, I was sort of aware a little bit about the sort of corruption that goes on in sort of, in that area, that Southeast Asian area. Bribes happen a lot. So I guess I wasn't surprised, but I was just a little bit kind of frustrated because it's like, you know, the murders were important and you wanted them to be solved and you wanted kind of justice for all the dead girls.
Yeah, it definitely sort of had a small element of horror to it. It was a bit creepy.
Yeah.
Because that guy was, he's pretty messed up.
Especially the bit where he's just taken the ex-cop's girl, and the couple goes up to the house and they're asking him questions, and I'm like, don't go in there because I know something's going to happen. I thought that bit was really creepy. They go into the house and then they're like standing in the dining room, I think, and he goes to get the guy that's supposed to actually live in this place that he just kind of decided to inhabit, and comes back, and then suddenly he's just hitting the couple over the head with the blunt object. I thought that was really creepy, and the hair in the drain in the bathroom and the blood. I thought they were really good elements, like they were subtle elements of like horror. So I think it sort of added to the creepiness of the whole movie.
Yeah, he was definitely well thought out. He because when the people came up and he was wanting to get rid of them, but then he realized that they'd start asking more questions, and so he was like, you know what, I need to kill them.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that was kind of just a frenzy or like an opportunistic crime that he just at the moment just decided to kill him?
Somewhat opportunistic, but I think it was a defensive sort of thing. Because I think he was trying to get them to go away, and he's like, they're leaving, and he overheard them going, oh no, this is really weird, why would this be a thing? And he's like, oh no, wait a second, you should come inside so I can kill you forever.
Tying up loose ends.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of that. I don't think he really planned to kill them. I think, as soon as it was circumstantial, so as soon as he overheard them kind of saying that, something's not right here, I think he kind of became quite defensive, and he was like, oh no, they're going to give it away, they're going to call the cops, and I'm going to go to jail. So I think it was kind of a murder in panic. Yeah,
but I don't know, it was interesting seeing his train of thought. Because it was that was well thought out. It was like, instead of being like, oh, good, they're leaving. It's like, oh, they're going to start asking me questions, and we have to deal with them again later, and it'll be more of an issue then.
Yeah, I think overall the film does really well to kind of get inside his head, and you kind of get the sense that I guess you can kind of predict what he's going to do, because you really get his perspective. And I thought what was really interesting was that they actually told you how he became a serial killer. Like he did when the cop goes to the house to, I think it's his sister's house, and she's explaining about how his son kind of had brain damage, and she's like, oh, he did it. And then I think that's really good because it's like an epiphany sort of thing as a viewer, and you're like, oh, this is how he became what he is. Like, you kind of join the dots together.
I don't know if it's like how he became, but it's definitely like the start. Like, I reckon he had some serious issues beforehand, but that was just like his first sort of violent episode.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was a catalyst.
Yeah. It's not like, oh no, I've beat this kid, I have to go kill everyone.
Yeah, obviously he had those thoughts, and, he may have been born with some kind of genetic issue, but I just thought that scene was kind of pivotal because it sort of gave you a better understanding of how he sort of became a serial killer. Especially his method of killing, because it all kind of links. Because he hits him over the head, the little boy. I thought that was really sad, that bit though.
Although in the police station, he talks them through what he was doing. He's like, he was talking about, he's like, I tried choking them and strangling them, but it was too long. It was like really messy, and so I decided to use a chisel and a hammer because that's how they kill pigs.
Yeah.
And that was really gross.
That was definitely I think that just really added to his character, and how how creepy he is and how disturbed he is. So I think that's probably good writing on the part of the writers of the film and the producers. Because they really do build his character and into this kind of just crazy killer, and sets you up to really hate him and really kind of want him to end up in jail or end up dead for what he's done.
Yeah. I think also they give you this they give you a hope that she's not going to die. So that was sort of like riding on the whole movie, going like, oh, okay, it's gonna be fine. Like,
Yeah.
not gonna die. She's gonna get out. Like they're gonna get him. But then, like out of like these weird circumstances, he just happens to walk into like the place that she ran into, and the convenience store lady is the dumbest bitch out. Like that whole scene is just like, oh, there's so many lunatics around. Maybe you should like protect me with a hammer. Like here, have this hammer and protect me from the lunatic. It's like, oh.
I actually really liked that scene, even though it was obviously disturbing and the woman was really stupid, because like in other sort of crime genres where the person gets taken and they manage to escape, they usually survive, whereas it was kind of unpredictable in a sense, because you're like, oh, you know, you really wanted her to survive, and you're like, oh, she's going to be alright, and then suddenly she goes into this corner store, and then the guy comes in. Yeah, so I thought that was a really good scene, how they put it together.
I think I've been watching too many horror movies lately because they don't have happy endings. And I was just sort of hoping that maybe this movie would have a happy ending, but not quite.
Yeah, it was kind of a teaser, because like the whole movie, it was like, oh, she's gonna survive, and then at the end they just like crush you, like all your hopes of her surviving are just gone.
Well, like, and that scene's not even quite at the end though. There's like another 20 minutes after that, isn't there?
Yeah, there's another 20 or so minutes. The ex-cop comes down and he's standing outside the store, and all that, the police are there and everything. And that's actually quite a long scene, because they have like this epic background music, and it's like really, they make the scene really long and tragic, because he's just there and he knows that something's wrong, and he knows that something's happened to her. I also thought that was a good scene as well. It was really kind of emotional. I think Anna said at that point she cried. She was actually in tears in that scene, and I definitely did get an emotional reaction from that, because you really wanted her to survive, and then you see the look on his face, absolute devastation.
It's not even that they just kill her, it's like they draw it out, they put it in slow motion, and there's like it's flying off the hammer, and you're like, this is a person that like we're supposed to have cared about for the whole movie, and they're just crushing that.
Yeah, it's pretty cruel what they do to her.
Yeah. It's horrible. And there's like, you can see the frustration in his face as he's getting like restrained by all the police.
Yeah, it's definitely a really good scene, because it just like it's so emotional, and it's so like overwhelming. He's just devastated, and it's, as an audience member, you're like powerless to do nothing. So yeah, I thought that was a really good scene for its impact.
I think that's like final bit where he's getting restrained by all the police is like sort of showing like it's like the culmination of all his frustrations with the police. It's like the whole time they've been like just holding him back from actually figuring out what's going on.
Yeah. I know. I definitely felt really sorry for him at that point, and I was actually quite kind of, I guess, frustrated, because I was like, oh, you know, they're not going to get him now. Like, I thought he was going to get away with it, the serial killer, at that point, because it was just like all was lost. So I think like you felt like if she survived, then they would catch him and it would all be, you know, happily ever after. But at that point, I was like, no, they're not going to get him.
Yeah. He really looks like a broken man after that. There's like the scene with him in the elevator, and he just looks like done.
Yeah. I don't know, I just wonder what motivated him to keep going. Was it just kind of the little girl? Like the thought of her not having a mother, does she deserve justice? It was just interesting to kind of have the opportunity to kind of get his thoughts on it. That would have been like to get inside his head. Kind of leaves you wondering how he managed to go after him and lead the police to him to be arrested.
Yeah. I'm just sort of watching like the epilogue again now, and it's just like it's him coming to the realization of that he sort of caused all this.
Yeah, he would have felt responsible for what happened. I was going to ask you, I thought there was a lot of kind of religious sort of connotations in it. Like there was the where he goes to the church, the ex-cop, and he sees the obviously the crucifixion, and then he makes connection with the drawings that the serial killer did in that little house that he was renting out. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
I found those drawings really to make sense of. Because I don't know whether that's just because it was really dark and I couldn't quite see what they were. Or...
Yeah. At first, when they showed you the room, I couldn't really tell what the drawings were. But I did at that point think that it had to do with something religious, or or it was somehow connected to the murders. And then he goes to the church, and then I kind of made that link between the drawings and sort of the church and all of that. Yeah, so I think I'm still trying to figure out the connection between that and the murders. Like, did it inspire him to, like, the method of how he was going to kill them? Like, yeah, I'm still trying to work out the connection between that and the murders.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense that. Well, it probably does, but I think it probably requires a bit more thought. Because I didn't quite get what the church had to do with it.
Yeah.
It went over my head.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go back and watch it again, but I don't know. The only answer I could give is probably like the whole Jesus crucifixion thing, and maybe it's kind of the murders were sacrificial or something. I don't know, that I might be reading too much into it, or that might be completely wrong.
I don't know. I think they were just like a selfish. Because in the scene when he's talking to the psychiatrist, the police are filming him, and he's talking to that sort of like police psychiatrist. It's just like he murdered women because like he couldn't sleep with them.
Yeah, the psychiatrist scene. I thought that was really good. The way he interrogated him and got the reaction. Yeah, definitely. The whole forensic kind of profiler type thing is actually quite common in a lot of this genre, like particularly in Asia, because there's another film that I watched a couple of weeks ago. It's a Japanese film. It's made in the 90s. It's called Cure. I wrote about it in one of my posts, my individual thing. And it's very much also kind of a serial killer in it, who's quite evil. And at first you're kind of confused. Is he, really evil, or is he kind of just doesn't know what he's doing? Like, because he appears to have lost his memory. So yeah, it's a really good movie. But they had the forensic profiler type character in there as well. So I think sort of the 90s onwards, maybe that's become quite a common trend in the sort of detective subgenre of crime in sort of East Asia.
I guess it's a common thing in like real life as well, though. Like, because it would follow trends of using profiling, like in psychological profiling, just sort of as part of a conviction. So it'd be interesting to see sort of whether that happened at a different time in Korea than it did like in other places.
Yeah. But I think it's also good because it doesn't center so much around the psychiatrist. Like, if you look at shows like Criminal Minds, where it's just profiling, it gets a bit kind of trivial. But they use it in a way that's kind of really thought out, and it's subtly. It's used in sort of subtle ways, and it doesn't sort of it's not overused. So I think it works really well within the plot to kind of explain the motivations and the intentions of these serial killers and like why they do it. Whereas in an American kind of crime movies and shows and things, they I think it's overused.
Yeah. I thought it was a bit of a cop-out, though, that they just, like, related everything back to sex. I don't know. It seemed really Freudian to me.
They do that a lot, though. It's really common. I seriously do blame Criminal Minds for all of this. Because they refer to that a lot as an explanation as to why people kill. I just think, just overused a bit.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It'd be more interesting to write a more in-depth character rather than just like, oh, I can't sleep with women, so maybe I should just kill them and cut them up. Like, I don't know. I feel like he was a really cool character, but I feel like his motivations could have been more in depth.
Yeah, they could have explained a lot more. I think that also has to do with like the church stuff, but we kind of didn't understand that bit. So if that was more
maybe
clear,
sort of rewatch it and sort of build that character a bit more.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is sort of your own interpretation as well. Like they leave a lot for the audience to kind of make up their own minds. I don't know, maybe he was just sick, just a disturbed person.
Yeah, I think he definitely fits that category.
Yeah, but they do a really good job of like making the audience kind of hate him a lot and kind of really kind of supporting the pimp guy. And even his like sidekick, I thought. Like I was like, yay, go you! Like he was running, trying to catch the guy. So I think even though they're criminals, even though they're criminals, you still kind of, you want them to win and to take down the bad guy.
I've got to head off to work really soon.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll be able to chat more about it on Thursday, and we can actually chat with him and actually and organise what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we've had a pretty good discussion.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good movie. Morning well spent.
I'm glad.
Alright, well I'll see you on Thursday in class.
Yeah, I'll see you then.
Sweet.